So thanks for joining. Some of you might know a lot about Qigong and some of you might not know much at all. So we'll find out what we can. Hi, Lindsay. Nice to see you.
Hello, nice to see you too.
I know it's nighttime for you and you're ready to go to bed. You're like me, you like to go to bed early, so I won't keep you too long. So
Yeah, all
let's
good.
get started with
Okay,
Qigong. Some of our viewers, most of our viewers will be yoga teachers. So
amazing.
they probably know a little bit about Qigong, but maybe not that much. So where does it come from?
Yeah, its origins are from China. And the number is escaping me, but it's very, very, very old. Very old. And it's curious when you do start to go back and look at the origins of where it came from. I think, I don't know, the number I heard last is there's 3,500 different forms of Qigong. So it's vast, and its origins are really from the shamanic roots of China and, Taoist, and even before Taoism. They call them the Wu, the shamanic practitioners in China, and that's really where the first kind of hints of it are.
Okay, the Wu as in W-U.
Yeah, yeah. The
Yeah, I've seen
shamanic,
that.
yeah,
So that's what's called uh, shamanic practice, is it?
yeah,
In that
yeah,
tradition. Okay. So is it the same tradition as Yin Yoga?
totally, totally.
Yeah.
And that's actually where, I kicked off on Qigong was from Yin Yoga.
Yeah, because I
Yeah,
love Yin Yoga and I do tend to follow quite a few Qigong people because they're always talking about meridians and all that sort of stuff
yeah,
and Qi.
exactly.
Yeah, it's like sounds very familiar, but of course it looks very different. So give us an example of how it differs from Yin Yoga or other forms of yoga.
Right. So, at its most basic, they kind of say that there are three principles to Qigong. So gentle movement, breathing, and visualization. I like to throw a fourth in though, and that's intention. So, holding an intent while you practice, or perhaps, the intention might even be to do the whole practice in your brain, in your mind. So, as long as you're holding that energy, I think that's equally as important to move the chi.
Oh wow, that's really interesting. That idea of visualizing it in your head.
Yeah.
So
So,
let's go through the principles one by one because that's really
sure.
interesting.
So, gentle movement. I think that's where Qigong can maybe start to be a bit more accessible to people than, there can be a barrier to yoga with I'm not flexible enough, or, my pants aren't stretchy enough, or I can't stand on my head. So I think that, sometimes people meet that barrier with yoga, where in Qigong, you don't need to be wearing anything special. It's usually a standing practice, but you can be doing it seated as well. And it's really gentle, slow, intended movement, where, I think for yoga and Qigong, the idea is the same. The end result is the same. We want to use our bodies to kind of access that state of relaxation or meditation, or in Qigong, we say the Tao, and yoga, would it be Samadhi, or, your truth. So it's using the body to kind of attain that same sort of state, but with a lot more gentle movements, typically a lot more arm movements in Qigong. Tai Chi, you might see a few more complex, almost like choreographed type movements. But Qigong's a lot more gentle, a lot more slow, a lot more purposeful, I think.
Okay, yeah, because I was going to ask you about Tai Chi because I've done Tai Chi and I never stick to Tai Chi, and I didn't really understand why Qigong I quite like. I've never sort of been frustrated or whatever, and I've incorporated Qigong. I like it,
Yeah.
The Tai Chi, it's not that I don't like it, it's just that for me, I've always found it annoying or something. I don't know why. And probably it's what you've just said, is the choreography, and it's quite
Yeah.
complex to follow, and you have to remember all this stuff, and I find it not relaxing.
I would probably echo that same statement for Tai Chi for myself. Um, yeah, it's typically in Tai Chi, it's yeah, a prescribed, choreographed set of movements that need to be done in a certain order. Where, you know, Qigong, you can kind of freestyle a bit more, and it's more intended kind of for self healing and for self evolution and you know, I hate to use the word relaxation, but I think that's something that people can relate to quite easily. But there's a lot more definitely that comes with the practice.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me now. It brings a bit of clarity, because I'm a bit the same with dancing, and like very choreographed kind of dancing. Like, I don't find it relaxing because my head's just, oh, what's the next move? What's the next move? But
Yeah,
Qigong, as you says, has always felt very a lot more organic
right,
and less prescribed.
right.
So the second, so mindful movement or gentle movement is the first principle. The second principle was,
Your breath, your breathing. So again, super similar to yoga in that sense. But breathing, even to layer on something else to the breath in Qigong, is breath is a source of qi. So it's, you know, a source of the energy. So qi is, you know, literally defined as energy, but it's a source of energy that we're bringing into the body. So there are definitely similar breathing practices in Qigong to yoga. There's even a, you know, a similar alternate nasal breathing practice in Qigong, again with a different intent. So while those are, you know, kind of their own set of practices, when you're practicing Qigong, the breath is really gentle and it's really natural. So there are some natural places where, you know, it's inhale the arms overhead, or you know, and then exhale the arms down. It was a bit of a trick actually for me, coming from because my background is yoga and having taught yoga, so I always want to cue all the moves with a breath. But in Qigong, if that breathing doesn't work with your movement, or perhaps your movement's a little faster that day and keeping your breath to match the movement doesn't work, it's really just all about a natural breath in Qigong.
oh, okay, so it's natural, but conscious, but conscious.
Yeah, yeah, definitely
Yeah,
purposeful.
yeah,
And you know, I think there's a freedom to use what feels good in your breath, in your body that
yeah,
day.
yeah. So a lot more like yin yoga.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, great. And then the third principle.
Visualization.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of cool. And I think that visualization kind of links to intention a bit too. And it's, there's a lot of cueing of, you know, imagining or visualizing a crystal chi rain shower coming down the over the top of your head, and or visualizing the chi moving through the body. And sometimes I think too, with that bit of the visualization portion, people can get stuck because, like, what does chi look like? I can't visualize that. But watching and visualizing the chi moving through the body is kind of the key third factor, which links to that intention piece, where even if, you know, you have a shoulder injury and you're unable to bring the arms overhead, imagining and intending the same from the visualization in your mind has equal benefit to just doing the movement on its own. And of course, probably the goal is to hold both at the same time, but
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. That's excellent. And of course, there are going to be people that can visualize more easily than others. It's the same like in meditation. I sometimes do visualizations, and I'll have some students that are really in it, and others that just don't really, you know, They're
Right.
just other things work for them. But if you're doing Qigong and the visualization, as you say, if people can't feel or imagine Qi, it doesn't really matter, does it? Like they could still work with the other principles.
Exactly. And you're holding the intention of the visualization as well.
Yeah. And so the fourth principle, which is your invention,
Yeah, and maybe, you know, I probably didn't invent it, but
is the Sankalpa, the intention.
yeah, and it's funny that you use the word Sankalpa because I have studied Yoga Nidra a lot in the past, and I love tying the idea of the Sankalpa into my Qigong practices and using that, you know, planting that seed that you're intending for your practice or your life. And you know, I was just kind of speaking about this the other day on my page that really, you know, holding the intention in your practice works the same as holding an intention for something in your life. So even if it feels like you aren't making those, you know, big steps towards a goal or a plan or, you know, a way of life that you want for yourself, just holding that intention really just has that power and that potency to make it, you know, sometimes I don't like using the word manifest, but to manifest that into your life. So holding that in your practice is also a really good tool to practice it for real life as well.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with that. I always set a Sankalpa in all my classes and I try to explain, like, take it out into the world. It's not just for this practice in this room. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that makes it a much more, then people understand that yoga, or in your case, Qigong, is your life. It's not
Yeah,
just something that you do in a room.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I'm really curious about, given that you came from a yoga background, what why you transitioned?
Hmm. That's a big question for me. I did start to become a bit, I don't know, disenchanted with yoga, and the direction it was going. And that's not to say that I don't practice anymore. I do have teachers that I still love to practice with, but I'm maybe a bit more picky about who I practice my yoga classes with
Yeah.
now. But I don't know, it just started losing the initial reason why I went to yoga for me. And that's, you know, it's really a personal choice too. And so it was actually a one of my traditional Chinese medicine doctors that I was working with at the time suggested, "Hey, have you ever tried Yin yoga?" Because I was super interested in TCM and those principles, and it was kind of odd because Yin yoga to me, the way I learned it in my training, was restorative yoga. You know, I didn't ever, like, we learned, you know, a yin yang practice. You'll have a really fiery practice, then you'll go into some like restorative type poses. So she directed me towards a woman here, actually in Calgary, where I am, Calgary, Canada. Her name's Stephanie Nosko, and
Oh, yeah.
introduced me to her yin training. And I was like, wow, like this is the stuff I've been looking for. And I had never, I'm not sure, you know, what happened that I didn't learn that piece in my teacher training. But then I'd also recalled a few times that I'd practiced Qigong in the past, and I remembered liking it, but then also kind of coming up against an obstacle when I was trying to seek out more information about it and learn and try and integrate it as a practice. I didn't find it to be very accessible with what was out there at the time. And so I started to make the link that, oh my gosh, this yin yoga stuff and qigong go seamlessly together. And then I think, as these things often happen, when you ask, the teachers start appearing for you and start, you know, making it more accessible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Stephanie's wonderful. I follow her as well. And I'm always, yeah, she's on a break at the moment and I'm missing her posts because
Totally.
I love them and I use all that stuff in my yin practice a lot. So yeah, you're lucky to have her over there.
Yeah.
She's an inspiration. Oh, well, that's so, okay. So I was going to say, Are you still teaching yin yoga then?
Not specifically. I still, there's parts like you actually just the other day when you posted Sphinx, I was like, oh yes, my kidneys really need that right now. So there's definitely still parts of the practice that I really quite like. Um, Sorry, I was just seeing Laureen asked about so what Stephanie's Instagram page is, and I think it's
Yeah,
Nosco Yoga.
I think it's Nosko Yoga. I'm just, yeah,
Yeah.
keep talking and I'll look it up. Well,
And I do, recommend for sure things to people from the yin yoga tradition because I still love, yoga. Haven't found anything that makes my spine move in the way yoga has yet, and I really crave that spinal movement sometimes.
yeah, I've noticed that quite a few yoga teachers that have gone like you to the Qigong, they're kind of like combining the two. So there's a few teachers that are kind of doing
Mm-hmm.
the, what are they calling it? The
Oh,
Qi or something, or
or yo chi.
Yogi, something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, the
which is I think quite a it feels very complimentary to me.
I agree. Yeah. A woman that I study a lot with, Mimi Kuo Deemer,
Yeah.
does a lot of the yoga and qigong together, and I quite I like practicing it, and I just haven't found maybe just not the time yet to teach it just yet.
Yeah. So how have you found like working with, well, I suppose you're only doing Qigong now, so you're only in the traditional Chinese medicine, Taoist tradition. So you don't have, like, I always have these two, like I've got my yoga, for my Hatha yoga, which I absolutely adore, and there's no way I'm giving that up. But then with my yin yoga, I've got all the, all the five elements and all that, which I also love and is, wonderful. But it is two very vast and complex traditions to work with. And I suppose
Yeah.
in the West we have this tendency to sort of cherry pick
Hmm.
and blend and reinvent. And I suppose that could be seen as cultural appropriation.
Yes. Yeah. I often wonder and sit on, I feel like it's a very fine edge sometimes in honoring the lineage and trying to, yeah, pick and take the things that do work for a more Western type lifestyle. And I can't say I've come to any answers or thoughts on how to do that correctly or right or the best way, but that is often on my mind about really being true to the lineage, especially with qigong, and I mean yoga itself too. The traditions run so deep, and honoring those and respecting those at the same time as, I was actually just discussing this today, like wearing fun earrings at the same time as you're doing these like deep traditions. I know that seems really like surface level, but trying to figure out how to blend that is something that's, yeah, definitely on the forefront of my mind quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah, same here. Same here. It's not an easy one because we want to serve our students, and you don't want to be so out there that they can't relate to it, to something
Yeah.
that's ancient and was probably offered to a completely different audience. In the with yoga, for example, a lot of the teaching, a lot of the texts were directed towards people who didn't have jobs and families, people that just hung out in
Yeah.
the forest and meditated all day. So it's not really appropriate for our students, and we have to serve our students.
Yeah.
So I guess the way around it in my mind is to maybe change what we call things,
Hmm. Hmm.
so that something is not really yoga, or it's certainly not traditional yoga. I mean, in yin yoga, they do say that this is a hybrid of lots of different things. They're not pretending that it's some ancient thing that they're still doing. There's a bit of hatha in it. There's a bit of
Right.
Taoism in it. There's mindfulness. There's Vipassana, and it's all kind of blended. And it is really a Western practice that borrows on ancient traditions, in my view, anyway. What do you
Right.
think?
Yeah. And yeah, it is curious that we're talking about this today because I was also having this conversation earlier today, and um, and it is, I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's, calling it something different, and I haven't been able to put the words quite yet to what it is that I want to call it, but um, yeah, I think I'm pondering. I'm in my head a lot here because it is something that I think about a lot. But I'm glad to be having lots of good conversations around it. And I think the more conversations about it, perhaps we'll get closer to some answers.
Yeah, absolutely. So another thing I wanted to ask you about is it says in your bio that you're a scientist. So what's that all about?
Yeah, yeah, I do have a daytime job. I like to call myself a earth scientist by day, earth mystic by night. But yeah, during my day job, I do spend my time as a geologist, so doing resource exploration. Um, so I've spent, oh, I'm 15 years in now to doing that. So I really love, though, from a science perspective, how, like the example that I always give is I study rivers quite extensively. So I'm quite always fascinated by rivers and being able to take that more, technical understanding of a river and applying those same concepts into the mind and the psyche and the spirit is always a super fascinating link when I start making different connections between the two is super fun for me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great that you can blend those two things. And of course, we've got the rivers of chi running through our bodies.
Yeah, yeah.
So, does your scientific brain have any kind of stickiness about the concept of chi?
It's funny because out of the sciences, they always say that geology or geologists were the creative science because the things that we study are, deep underground and we can't necessarily see them or grasp them all the time. So we have to get really creative with describing what's under there. And we always get the gears because we've got pencil crayons and stuff out drawing maps and making colorful sketches. And
Yeah.
so I think, as far as the sciences do go, sometimes for sure there is some, critical thinking blocks that come up that I have to try and let go and and move past.
Yeah. Oh, that's great that you've been able to correlate those two things together. Absolutely. I wanted to ask you also, if you had to describe your approach to your teaching Qigong, what is your approach?
I really am fascinated by the fluidity and cycles of nature and how those really reflect in the human body and even within our mind and our spirit. And so I really try to keep that in mind when I'm teaching. And it also has a real kind of feminine support with all of the fluidity and cyclicity that I'm, kind of focused on. I try and bring in that kind of divine feminine to support to the practice because it has historically been passed down by men, and understanding from a woman's perspective, even how, moving in a female body can be a little bit different in some of the forms, and understanding that and trying to bridge those two together feels like yeah, that's the perspective that I try and bring to the practice.
Yeah, beautiful. And tell me, are you teaching in real life or are you teaching online?
Lots of Zoom, lots and lots of Zoom. I have done a few one-offs lately in person, and my being heart to heart feels so nice right now. So yeah, I'm sure, you know, things are evolving by the minute, it seems here. So hopefully more in-person group options are going to start opening up. And
Oh, yeah, I hope so too. I hope so for you as well. Because when you're working with Chi, you know, I don't know. I find the Zoom thing not very successful.
yeah, 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 definitely. And you know, especially with Qigong, there is a bit of a learning curve because there's a whole new set of words. And even if you are familiar with yoga, you know, suddenly you're using different words to describe the chakra systems. And so there is kind of that mental barrier there that can be sometimes. And now you put a screen in front of that too. So
Yeah, another barrier.
yeah.
Okay, great. So, would you like to leave us tonight with maybe a little mudra thing or something that we can do on the
Ooh.
screen?
You know, I've been doing this one an awful lot, and I mean, it's going to work really nicely for me because I'm about to go to bed, but perhaps not for people who are kind of in the middle of their day. But the microcosmic orbit is a cycle of energy that runs through the body that all of the meridians branch off of. So it's kind of one of the main energetic loops in the body, and it runs up the back of the body and then down the front of the body. So it's the governing and conception vessel. And I've been doing this one so much lately, and it's just a gentle self massage of the conception vessel down the front of the body. I'm not sure if you can see me here too well. I might just move my camera back a little. So I think I'm cut off at the bottom. But it's just a gentle self massage down the front of the body, really nourishing the conception vessel, and that's the yin portion of the microcosmic orbit. And it's just this beautiful self massage, visualizing, you know, chi coming through your hands, directing the chi down from, you know, the head and the throat and down into the lower dantian, which is the energetic field or the energetic center that sits 3 finger widths below the belly button. And it just feels so luxurious to settle into this and feel your own touch. And then you can bring in that visualization portion, and maybe there is soft golden light coming out of the centers of your palms, kind of like little flashlights, as each palm finds the front of the body and then directs the chi downwards. The breath is really natural, no forcing of the breath. And then you can do 3 or 4 more. When you finish, just find palm over palm on your lower dantian, so right below the belly button. Taking a gentle breath into that area and feel the palms rise. And as you exhale, the belly sinks, tuning into your lower dantian. And then you can release when you're ready.
Nice. So, is that something that you do before bed?
Yeah, and on waking too, actually. A really nice, gentle way to wake up and get that energy current kind of flowing. And then I always kind of do little belly circles on lower dantian to just rubbing that area to get the chi flowing. The lower dantian is really linked to the kidneys, which are, you know, our battery system. So get everything kind of up and flowing and going.
Yeah, that's really nice. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So before we let you go to bed tonight, is there anything else that you'd like to share?
No, not specifically. I mean, I'm just, you know, thankful to be here. This is one of my favorite things about, you know, this kind of what can be odd social media land, is making these connections and being with community and connections that you would have never made otherwise. So it feels really special.
Yeah, it's been lovely to have you, and thank you for your lovely page. I love following you. You always inspire me, and I've used some of your movements in my classes, and that's always really nice to do that.
Amazing.
Have a great night.
Thank you so much.
And
have a great afternoon. Okay, chat
Bye.
soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you. Bye-bye.